So this is week 3 of me going back to studying for a software job. And to give a progress update, I'm up to about 42 on the Leetcode 150, as well as around 65 total questions done given my tracker. This is the thing I use to track my progress on different questions and when I'm repeating them. And I've been putting a ton of effort into studying system design because it has been a main weak point of my knowledge in all of the past years that I've been doing software. And for that, I've been doing 2 main things. First is I started watching this YouTube channel called Jordan Has No Life that was recommended through some sort of Reddit post or something. And it's this guy who just does tons and tons of system design questions, and he's actually really funny, so it makes the videos actually very entertaining. And the second thing I've done is create a separate Notion page, separate from the Leetcode Notion page that I've created, where I write notes for myself for system design, but I apply the concepts of spaced repetition and, most importantly, active recall. So this is a theme I've done for both Leetcode and now system design, and I'll explain a little bit more about my process. Basically, when I'm going through textbooks or when I'm going through these videos or when I encounter things online, I'm constantly looking for questions to ask myself, to test myself. And then when I can, I write down these questions and I write down the answers. And whenever I have time, I go back through all my different question and answer cards, basically like flashcards, and see if I can remember how to explain these concepts. Obviously, just knowing the information won't help that much in system design interviews and the real thing, but it does help with retention for small things that are easy for me to forget, that I haven't learned well, and it helps me to, really remember a lot of that stuff more. And I've done the exact same thing with Leetcode. So I have this sheet that I've shown off probably a million times before of what I recorded for every single question I did back in my 2020 studying days. But it was kind of garbage in certain ways, because what I would do when I didn't know how to do one of the Leetcode questions was I would write it down in that spreadsheet, and then I would write the trick for that question in the corner or something. And then I would basically never look at my notes ever again, which is kind of useless, especially if I'm going through all these problems. Like, what was the point if I just forgot all this knowledge? So what I'm doing now for Leetcode specifically is applying the concept of active recall as well, where as I'm doing the Leetcode question, as I'm learning about the answer, I try to find questions to ask myself. I try to find ways to explain each concept thoroughly, and I put it in one column, the question I'm asking myself, and I put the answer in another column. That way I'm sort of like teaching myself how to do these problems, and every once in a while I scan back through my lists of active recall questions just to remember the trick for each question that I've done, just so that the knowledge isn't lost forever and I'm not completely wasting my time and stuff. So I found these 2 tools to be much more helpful for my overall retention, and maybe someone else will find use out of this. Another piece or motivational tip that I wanted to share was something I remembered from my time of studying and learning how to do data structures and algorithms and Leetcode back in 2020. I remembered why it was so painful, the crux of why it was so frustrating learning like everything. It's because there was just honestly so much shit to learn. If you're learning data structures and algorithms, it's literally could be a 3-month course. So I was doing this question recently called merge k-sorted lists, and I was kind of stuck on the problem. At this point, I haven't completely reviewed a lot of the data structures and algorithms because I've just forgotten a lot of them, and it takes time to review all this shit. But after about 15-20 minutes, I was just like, okay, let me just look at the solution. And then the solution was describing how it essentially needed a merge sort-like solution. And it was a situation where I sat there and I was like, oh, damn, I don't remember how to do this fucking merge sort. So then I had to sit down for 30 more minutes and relearn how to do merge sort in order to understand this problem fully. And suddenly I had this flashback to 2020 of times when I was most frustrated. You see, right now it's a bit easier because I'm mostly reviewing a lot of these concepts. And when you review, you probably relearn it twice or 3 times faster than when you were learning for the first time. But back in 2020, when I was stuck on a question, I didn't know how to do it, and I looked at the solution, I would get an answer that was even more confusing because I didn't know the data structure or algorithm or sorting algorithm behind it. And those were the times in 2020 where I was like, I am never going to get this. Like, there's way too much stuff to learn. Like, how is anyone supposed to learn all of this stuff and not get completely burnt out in the process? And yeah, it's tough. Those feelings were really debilitating and they were not fun, and I remember a lot of those instances now. But just remember, if you're learning these things for the first time, It will be tough, but if you ever have to relearn these things ever again, which if you stay in software, you probably will, your knowledge, your time isn't going to waste. So the last thing I wanted to talk about today was why I even want to go back to software in the first place. Because I've seen some people ask, why would you even want to go back to software? Why would you be looking for a software job and studying Leetcode and system design barely a couple months after you made a video about burnout? And I can give an answer in probably about 3 separate parts. The first and probably the most important part for this whole thing is that I have legitimately started to miss coding. While doing a bunch of Leetcode, while going through this whole process, I remembered a lot of the small wins that I got from just the day-to-day process of coding in general. While working on a lot of projects and going back to web development and studying system design, I remember why I got into this field in the first place. And it reminded me a lot of what I loved. In the past couple of years, I spent a lot of time completely burnt out in different ways. But truthfully, I think there were a lot of other mental health issues going on in my life as well that prevented me from really enjoying software the way I always wanted to, which probably leads into the second part of this whole thing. And the fact is that self-employment is really, really hard. There are things about working for yourself that I would never even have comprehended when I was still working a regular 9-to-5 job. The most obvious thing that I didn't realize was that, when you're working a 9-to-5 job and you get sick or you have an unproductive week or you take some time off, nothing stops. You're not going to get fired. And most importantly, if you're working a salary position with PTO and time off and stuff and sick days, you're still going to get paid. But when you are self-employed, when you are making your own money, the amount you get paid is directly proportional to how much and how long and how effective you can be while working for yourself. Those are the ups and down swings of self-employment that, maybe are left out of a lot of these videos about building businesses and everything. But that's just kind of the self-employment life though. It comes with its pros, it comes with its cons. I loved it, but there's no doubt that it was difficult. I am still going to continue to figure out how to make money for myself for the rest of my life. But I don't have the risk tolerance to go all in on that path forever. When I left my job, I decided to take a chance on myself and hope and work really hard to try to figure it out on my own. And I set myself a timeline financially based off of the savings that I have had from years and years as working as a software engineer. And it kind of lined up with the fact that, I was completely burnt out from my job and I was ineffective. So yeah, this was definitely not a time of my life that I will ever look back with regret. And the third and final reason that I've been wanting to go back to a software job more than anything is that I have found myself extremely isolated while working for myself. Way more than when I was in an office job and way more than when I was working a remote job. Life can be lonely if you don't take steps to change things up. And I've had this one video that I've been on and off about making for probably the past 6 months, which was about how remote work really isn't for everyone. But I really didn't feel like it fits the audience of my channel. I felt like it wasn't quite the right time with all the tech layoffs and everything going on in the world right now. So I'll just give the TLDR version right now. I think everyone agrees that working 5 days in the office sucks. But I think working 0 days in an office sucks almost equally. It is overwhelmingly lonely, especially if you live alone. I mean, does that equal the existential dread of commuting to work 5 days a week? Probably not. I think it's still probably
worse to work 5 days a week in an office that's really far away. But for me, I want to go back to working with people. I want to look for a hybrid software engineer job, a company where we'll be there a couple days a week and we'll be at home a couple days a week. I think that's where I work most effectively. So anyway, that's enough of my rambling. Hopefully you liked these weird news style of videos I'm putting out while I'm struggling to get a software job again. But yeah, anyway, that's it for today. And as always, thanks for watching.